Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at OK Comics number 1 and number 2. This is the brainchild of Bruce Walthers. He did a handful of underground comics in the early 70s, almost all of them for Kitchen Sink Comics. And he was in various anthologies, but in 1972 he got 2 issues of his own comic. And the story behind this guy, Bruce Walthers, his real name was Bruce Walthers Van Alten, but his pen name was just Walthers. And I guess at this time, he was like in his 50s. He was the CEO of a family-owned model railroad company. He was pretty well off. He wasn't a hippie at all. And I guess he always wanted to be a cartoonist. He was a little doodler and stuff. And somehow he hooked up with Dennis Kitchen a few years before this, started having his comics, like his little hobby comics, published in the Bugle American, which was Dennis Kitchen's alternative paper in Milwaukee. And I guess Kitchen liked his stuff and put him in Mom's Homemade Comics and put him in Smile and gave him his own 2 comics. So let's check these out. These are very interesting undergrounds. They're very different. As you can tell by this cover, he's not the best graphic designer. He's not the best artist. But I do like that he admits it. The motto of this comic is, they're okay. So he's not claiming they're that great. But the one thing about this comic, probably because he was this, rich old guy who didn't need to make money from these comics, they're sometimes very dopey, as you can already see. His art's not going to set the world on fire, but there's a palpable joy of him creating these, where he's just like, I just have this urge. I just always wanted to do this shit. So they're very silly and very playful, and that definitely makes this comic more enjoyable, that whole thing about it. Inside front cover is Kabibler Funnies. That's his main character, Oscar Kabibler. That's why it's named OK. And just to show, like, this is just these playful little goofy things he does, where Oscar's getting closer and closer to us until he's right in our faces. Next we have a 1-page gag strip, and this is pretty much just like an old vaudeville thing. They tell a bad joke. Oscar and Oscar, the vaudeville team. Kind of goofy. And he draws almost everyone like this. Everyone's bulbous, and they kind of all look like him in a bulbous way. This is definitely one of the strips where, just to show, like, he's just playing around. He's having a good time. Squish Funnies. And all these unrelated little vignettes of various things squishing or getting squished. We see this guy falling. Squish. We see this guy walking down the street. Giant Monty Python-like foot squishes him. And then for some reason a giant eclair's in the middle of the freeway and a truck runs over it. This guy squishes a hot dog plant. And I know it's very simple, but this looks great to me for, like, just simple cartooning. It's he definitely has a style, that's for sure. I should say good. Doesn't look great, but I think it's kind of fun. The Old Man and the Kid. This is one of the few nods in these comics that this takes place during this tumultuous era of, the hippies and the generation gap. This old man walks by a kid. He says, get a haircut. And he says, screw. But then he says, psst, old man, come here. I want to tell you something. And he leans in and he bites his ear off and spits it out and goes off humming. Very strange. It's okay. It's Oscar Kabibler in Big Things at number 13. So Oscar and his wife are heading off to kind of like a VFW hall banquet, but it's the Benevolent and Protective Order of Featherless Bipeds. Kind of like the Shriners or something. Once again, I've talked about this before. He loves to draw these weird vehicles that have never existed. Oscar's car looks like that. Some of the cars on the road look pretty normal, but then he loves to make these fanciful vehicles. So they head out to the Most Revered Ceremonial Mosque, number 13. And we hear all the people talking about their kind of basically suburban middle class stuff. And this old member gives a speech very poorly. He's not a very good speaker. He probably could do his own YouTube channel about comic books. That's how bad he is. And he's basically railing against the hippies and how something should be done, and they're ruining the country, and yada yada. And then Oscar and his wife go home. Here's another little one-page gag. Not that great. This one is definitely a playful one. How's about a funnies? And I gotta say, from the past few years of really getting into undergrounds, even more than I was growing up, where I swear to God, this is a mini genre in undergrounds, where these, like, I guess, kind of high hippie cartoonists love to make these strips where it's just a bunch of random images that rhyme, like tell a goofy little, almost children's poem. I've seen it, I swear to God, I think there's 20 stories in the various undergrounds I have. I'm just too lazy to look them all up, where that's a thing. It's just interesting how it's this mini genre. So we see these three guys, and they're like, how's about a skinless Frank, a rubber bank, a nasty crank, pulling rank. Juicy lemon. How's about a juicy lemon? The number 7. So it's just this like fun, playful little thing of just like, yeah, how many goofy rhymes can I make up, and just to give me an excuse to draw funny images? A long-necked goose, a hypnopotamus. I always like these strips though. I don't love them, but they were just so fun and goofy. Now we have Ralph and Fred. And Ralph and Fred, they get a job as exterminators. They go to this woman's house to pull a job, and they don't know what they're doing. So they're over-gassing the place. They pass out even. But they're not hurt or anything. They wake up, and they've both got splitting headaches. We see these two little bugs safely ensconced behind the walls. And they're like, they're at it again. It just plays havoc with my allergies, that shit. But it obviously hasn't harmed them much. And I like how, like, if this was a Mutt and Jeff strip, there'd be all these hijinks ensuing. We tore her wall down on accident, and my foot's caught in the garbage can. But this is just like, that's what happens, and then they leave, and then they just start arguing with each other, like old friends. And he's all like, fuck you, turd brain. Fuck me. Fuck you on toast. And he's like, toast? I'm sorry, he says, fuck you. Don't forget the toast. Toast? Yeah, fuck you on toast. It's just like so dumb. But I think I'm going to start saying that. That's going to be in my lexicon from now on. This one I really like. It's called Day and Night. And this is just him just being, I don't know, kind of an artiste. It doesn't make any sense, his limited abilities as an artist. But I think this looks really good. I mean, I love this pointillism he does. It's almost like, Dave Sheridan, Fred Schreier. But look at this. I mean, he's not a very good artist. He's not the best. But with what he has, the talent he has, I think he uses it well. And he does fun stuff, like even the logo kind of looks neat. And this is just, I don't know, a comic poem, an abstract comic, I guess. Then he starts playing around with op art here and just showing random various images. Lots of cross-hatching, as you can see, and shading, because it's day and night, and he's showing us examples of day and night. I kind of like this, and I don't know why. This next one is Going to the Drugstore, featuring these two little kids, Robert Lumpy Lumpass and William Jr. Dipstick. So they go to the drugstore, and I guess they go every day. They're both really fat kids, so they just roll down the hill to get there. Their plan is to read as many comics as they can, but of course the owner of the drugstore always gives them shit. This is in the library, kids. So every day or every week they try to see how long they can make it, how many comics they can read. So yeah, it's pretty not much happens. It's a very odd little strip. And then the owner finally says, okay, library hours are over, boys, get out of here. And the kids go off kind of grumbling, making fun of the guy. Next we have Hurry Up Comics. And this, I guess, is a commentary on the go-go society, the modern society. And everyone's just I'm in a hurry, get out of my way, come on. I like how these guys are one of those whatever flying car things. They're saying, if you're looking for snappy dialogue from this outfit, forget it. It's just kind of self-aware goofiness like that. More of these crazy cars. Now we have So What Funnies, and this is just a magical mystery tour. No, it's not that great, but it is really weird. And it's kind of hard. Maybe this guy was taking drugs. Maybe he was a 55-year-old, CEO who liked taking LSD. Because this one just keeps taking crazy twists and turns. It starts off, we see two badly drawn cars crash. Then it says, searching for the enemy. This guy's in an airplane. And it kind of turns into a commercial for Grover Salted Nuts. He said, hey, kids, if you're spotting commies from 10,000 feet, it's tough work. You need some Grover's Nuts. And then we totally take a left turn into postmodern territory where we see the cartoonist and he's saying, how do I express the concept of the void in comic book format? And he's thinking of all these ways to do it. And then this other character says, enough of this ego-tripistic bullshit. And so as you can see, these panels are just crammed. So it's almost just like the whole comic got hijacked by this type of stuff. And then we see another cartoonist, and he claims that he's going to get the comic back on track. But he can't think of an idea either. Now we just switch to a guy watching TV, and it's a word-for-word Buick commercial, except for one line. Everything, it reads just like a normal commercial. So it's like, wait, where's the humor? But then it is pretty funny. And he adds one of his rare cuss words. Bruce Walthers' comics are, for the most part, pretty clean, except for a few cuss words. And then we see this guy. He's kind of a happy-go-lucky, happy camper type guy, bragging about, I got a steady job, life insurance, health insurance, my car's paid for, my house is paid for. I got my Christmas shopping done, I'm on top of the world. And then he gets in his car and then he starts philosophizing. He's like, well, I'm driving down that old road of life. And he says, it won't be long till I reach the end of that long, lonesome turnpike and stop in at that great service plaza in the sky. Then we cut away to three philosophers on TV. And they're just spouting, gobbledygook. Words like truculent and precursatory. All these fancy 25-cent words that mean nothing. It's all nonsense. And we see this old fisherman saying, nothing wrong with philosophers, except maybe they think too much. And then it turns into a PSA of how you shouldn't smoke marijuana. Watch out for Mr. Joint, he'll lead you to sin. He'll do you in. Now we cut away to this cowboy guy walking through the desert, and he's saying, oh shit, taking a puff of the stuff never put me in a huff. Sounds like Basil Wolverton dialogue. And then he says, he continues to just walk along. He gets on this train or trolley, a streetcar. Now on a nearby rise, it says, we see this kind of state trooper guy who's watching out for subversives. And he basically is taking a break. He's hungry. So he's like, I need a hot dog. Now we cut away to this place where he's heading, Ned's, and all these guys are hanging around the hot dog machine, the Vendo dog. I guess you could set it to plain ketchup, the works. Doesn't sound like a good idea. And they're all just spouting these kind of hackneyed homilies. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You win some, you lose some. That's the way the old cookie crumbles. They're just saying nothing. They're just saying these old phrases. And then they talk about the Wienermobile. And then how this scientist is dipping hot dogs in liquid oxygen. And then Chuck Cheeseburger shows up. And he's like, that's all bullshit. Hamburgers are America's best loved meal. And he's walking down the street, just fulminating and just getting pissed off. And then we switch again. It's like, it's like that 52 Stories About Springfield, I think it's called, the famous Simpsons episode. And then a guy is in a car. The cheeseburger walks in front of him, and now we follow his thoughts. And he's thinking about, like, what the hell's the world coming to? A cheeseburger? A fucking cheeseburger walking across the street? And this guy's just angry. And he's just going off about how his wife won't leave him alone. And he's like, yeah, no way I'm going to tell my wife. She'll probably give me shit about it. And now we cut away to this total psychedelic page. So, I mean, but it does seem like psychedelia drawn by a 50-year-old guy who owns a company. I like this. These two upside down guys, they say, he's just messing around. Tell me something I don't know. So I think they're talking about Bruce Walthers' art. He is literally just messing around on this page. Now, there's no semblance of continuity or whatever, logical progression. He's just having fun. More op art here. The Cosmic Slayer of Bullshit Fantasies. Sounds like the title of a Robert Williams painting. And there's all this goofy stuff everywhere. This guy's saying, pretty piss poor lettering. Once again, commenting on being, self-aware. I don't know. I kind of like this stuff. I know it's like he's not the best artist. It's kind of clumsy. But just for the just goofy fun of it. Like, this is nutty. Oh, that's the end. So now we have Oscar Kabibler again in Nice Day for a Drive. He bids adieu to his wife. He says, I'm going to go get some air in my tires in this cute little car. And he goes to the service station. The attendant fills up his wheels, his tires too much. Well, one of them. And it goes floating off into the sky, into the stratosphere. And then it says stage 1 is deployed. So I don't know why the car ejects Oscar, who continues to rise up to the sky. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? So this little balloon shows up in a hat. And he says, here, let me help you. Let me just stick this on your foot. And I love this almost like childlike logic that the reason why balloons float is because the string attached to them. So by that reasoning, he's like, oh, let me stick this string to your foot so you'll continue to float, so you won't start falling. And he's this really friendly guy and kind of telling Oscar about the society they have up there. There's all these balloons up there, and they all seem pretty mellow. And he says, yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's bragging, but he's just like, yeah, we're kind of advanced, more advanced than you guys down there. We're a little less confused about life than you guys are, a little freer. And he says basically, to sum it up, he says, yeah, our motto is basically, we don't sweat it. So they're kind of like, like maybe bohemian types who are fretting about money and rent and whatever. So he says, all this talk has made me thirsty. Let's go to a bar. So there's a floating saloon, and he orders Oscar some sarsaparilla. But this isn't ordinary sarsaparilla. I think it's got some hallucinogenic properties because Oscar starts feeling strange, and his head's floating off here. I like these letters. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. And Oscar's being crushed in between them. And then these three, like a slot machine. Yes. So it works, and Oscar's feeling great. And it's almost like he's like, yeah, I'm not going to sweat it either. I was all worried about getting back to work. I feel great now. I don't really care. But he does start telling him about his job and, bitching about it. He's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go back. I gotta kiss ass to my shitty boss, always waiting for a raise, on my hands and knees, kissing ass for that. Screw it. And then the balloon says bye to him. And he's like, wait, come back. He wants to know more. He wants more guidance. And then the story ends for this issue, but it continues in the next issue. So it's the first part. I don't know what to say about that cover. It's whatever. I think he did his own coloring on that. It doesn't look like someone who really knows much about the coloring process. Here's number 2. Yeah, Once again, there's not much I can say. It's his kind of goofy cartooning. We have a little gag strip here. Clyde the Clod. He's not too bright, but he's all right. Just another kind of head scratcher. Just like, what the hell? And then we have a new character, Little Farquhar. And he's this young man. And he's, at the beginning of the story, he's pissed off. He's looking for this guy. They don't name him, so we'll call him Buster, because that's what he calls him. He says, hey, you were out with my girl last night. What the hell's going on? And the guy's kind of calmly just says, hey, dude, you got a shitty car. Your girlfriend would rather be seen with me in my cars. So she's hanging out with me now. And he shows him the new car. It's pretty slick. He's like, how'd you buy that? He's like, I got a better job. I'm making more money. And what can I say? You know, your girlfriend don't like you anymore. Or she thinks you're lame. So he walks off all sad. He says, oh, man, new car, new job, and my girl. Why can't that happen to me? He's all whining, you know. He calls up Flopsy's house. That's his girlfriend's name. I'm sorry, Floopsy. The mother gives him the runaround, obviously. Floopsy said, I don't want to talk to that guy, you know. So he goes down to his job. He's a newspaper route guy. I guess like a newspaper boy, but he's a newspaper man. He says, give me an extra route. I need more money. And this his coworker's kind of chill, his manager. He's just like, yeah, man, settle down. He'll never solve your problems by being a hothead. And he says, here, smoke this. It's marijuana. He's never smoked it before, Farquhar. And pretty soon, it seems like it's leveling him out. It's setting him straight. He starts saying, he says, you know, I've been thinking, if Floopsy ditched me just because that other guy had a new car, maybe she wasn't a great girlfriend in the first place. Maybe she's just a gold digger. So what am I fretting about? So the marijuana definitely seemed to do its work. He's like, yeah, I don't want another route. I don't need more money to impress some, you know, crappy girlfriend. He says, well, you know, if you want to make money, you don't even have to do this stupid job. I got a plan. Can your car make it down to Mexico? And they drive down to Mexico, and they basically do a drug run. And they make a lot of money. We don't even see any incident of it. It's just them driving in the car talking. It's not like they don't show us them buying the weed or getting it through customs. And then when Farquhar gets home from his trip, Floopsy calls him up, and I guess she's had a change of heart because she's like, hey, maybe we could go out tonight. And he tells her about his new job, and she's like, ooh, maybe you could buy a new car. He's like, nah. So she says, can we go out tonight? She says, nah, I don't know. But you know what? If you want, you can come over and wash and wax my car. So he's basically kind of being a dick to her. She says, why, you little schmuck? But then she has a nice voice. She says, sure, Farky, I'll be right over. So when she comes to the door, he just says, hey, the wax and stuff's in the garage. Get to work. And then he calls up another girl, gets a date with her. When she's done with the job, he just kind of sends her off. And he's all excited about his date. And he's preening and making himself look nice. And when he goes out to the car, we realize that Floopsy got a little revenge on him for being a dick. She wrote, Farquhar Jones is a wiener. So now he's all like, God damn it. Now I can't go on my date. And then he realizes, he says, wait a second. I'll take it to Acme Quickie Auto Body Paint. And then it just ends with a commercial for Acme Quickie Auto Body Paint. Very strange ending. And Farquhar says, it's great to be alive. As you could tell, I forgot to mention this, just the art, guys. You know, he's not drawing those bulbous little bodies. It's like he's trying to draw. It's still very primitive, but it almost looks like a different artist. And this one does as well in a different way. Like this little guy. This is called Ed Ego. And this is, he's trying to be a little heavy. It's like, I'm Ed Ego. You know, I'm you. I'm the guy that has convinced you that of what you think you are. So, yeah, I didn't get much of this trip. But it was different. I was just like, this is odd. This one is very weird. Indecision funnies. There's another one where he's just, it's not cohesive. It's just a bunch of, he wanted to draw things for 2 panels. Screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. Flo says we will, Herm says we won't. And then for some reason, we see Fritzy Ritz trying to decide between her 2 beaux who she should marry. And then we see Richard Nixon, who's also in a dilemma. Yeah, the weight of his decisions is getting to him. That's a pretty good Nixon right there. Now this one's kind of heavy. I kind of like this one. It's called Cylinder. No, I know that's a terrible pun. So, we basically see this big cylinder. Well, his name's Cylinder. And basically he is like the 0.01%. And, one glance at this guy, you can tell he's not ordinary. There's something about him that just commands respect. He's confident. He knows how to deal with people. And he says, what's good for me is good for just about everybody. Take my word for it. So I guess there's a bunch of these guys. And they're basically all talking about how, the little fry, the small fry, they wouldn't even know what to do. We're the ones with the know-how and the experience. We're the only ones who can get things done and make things work smoothly. That's why we're at the top, where we deserve to be. And you can tell they're just very corrupt. They're just a bunch of ultra, mega rich people who just want to hold on to their wealth and stay on top. But then they totally illustrate it with this, just really talking about the whole class system. So he says you can't have a top without a bottom, and you need a middle to shield the top from the vulgarity of the bottom. So now we start seeing this pyramid grow. And we see the poor guys on the bottom with flat heads because they're always getting crushed down. When the middle is larger than the bottom, it can cause instability. So that's when the big cylinders have to apply a little pressure and squish them down even further, which gives them more stability. And I think this guy's never heard of the Russian Revolution, though, because not to put in my own 2 cents, but eventually these people, they're not going to take it forever if you keep squishing them. But then again, things are changing. Maybe it'll be like 1984. It'll be like a boot on your face forever, stomp in your face for all time. So just playing out this analogy. And it's actually pretty thoughtful and seems kind of dead on. I love this scene here where we see all the classes, upper middle, middle, lower middle, bottom. And of course the rich guys on top are just like, this is awesome. Oh, so much fresh air up here. Let's dance. But everyone else in the pile, in the pyramid is like, I gotta work harder to get to the top. I gotta work late tonight, honey. If only I had a master's degree. They cut out my overtime. And now we see the people kind of at the lower end of the spectrum. And then the big guy, Cylinder, says, so boys and girls, work hard, get A's in school, keep your nose clean. You don't want to be on the bottom. Oh, yes, and have affluent parents, too. I love that last little bit, because that's what it really comes down to. I've been working hard my whole life, and I'm not rich. So we have architecture page. This is, I think, my favorite page by Bruce Walthers. I don't think so. Sorry. It is, by far. This is great to me. This is a really good drawing. This is an artist's concept of new First National Bank building. Which is kind of funny, too. But, man, I really like this. Next, we have a strip that's called You Might As Well Just Relax and Enjoy It, eh? And we see this guy walking down the street. Someone throws a cream pie in his face. He's pissed off. Knocks his hat off, so he puts it back on, wipes the banana cream off his face. Then it happens again. Now he's starting to get scared. He's like, oh shit, when is it going to happen again? But he goes on long enough and he says, no, I think it's okay. And no more banana cream pies. And then, of course, the last panel, he gets another one. So I don't know if the moral of the story is just that, yeah, it never gets better. It'll continue forever. getting shit on. Here's another Ed Ego page, even though I don't see him anywhere. This is totally different art. Look at this. So crosshatched you can barely see the faces, as if they're in the witness protection program. And almost looks like Justin Green, some of these faces. Interesting. The strip I didn't really understand, to be honest. So Ed Ego Back Again, it's called. Excuse me, guys. I need some water. Now we have Oscar Kabibler. This is the second part of the story we saw last issue. And it's weird how these comics pretty much came out back to back, within months of each other. Both came out in 72. And the difference in art styles between the first and second issue, even in the Kabibler strip, like, for example, all of a sudden, he's showing us Oscar's eyes. He never did that before. All those little short strips of Oscar Kabibler, he always had that little hat, obscuring his eyes, which was kind of his cool graphic iconography. Iconography? Sorry. I don't know how to say big words sometimes. So, it's right where we left off. Another balloon comes up to Oscar, and he's a lot less friendly than the first one. He's like, oh, you're one of those uptight people. I hate you uptight people. You cause problems for all the rest of us. And then he does the old untied shoe trick. And Oscar's like, hey, my shoe's not untied. And then he kicks him really far. Throws his hat off after him. And he says, I'm glad I'm not uptight. And I kind of like these panels of just Oscar flying through. I mean, once again, we get the sense that Bruce Walthers was just like, I just feel like drawing this. This is just all fun for me. I like how the little hat lands on his head. Bleep. So then he sees this sign that says advice. And he's confused. He has to figure this craziness out. And this takes him 2 pages or 3 pages to get there. Just an excuse for Walthers to show Kabibble traipsing through this surreal landscape. I kind of like these 2 pages. Just him, all this weird imagery. And like I said, not very well drawn. But what he can draw, he picks good stuff to draw that's in his range, I guess. So he finally finds the place, and the secretary ushers him into the office. They're ready for you now. And it's him in the office. 2 doubles. And they're like, who are you? Okay, Weisenheimer. And they think, oh, brother, what a nincompoop. Of course, they're thinking the same shit and saying the same stuff. And they're getting really mad at the situation. And as you can see, he looks so different with his hat up over his eyes. This almost looks like a different cartoonist. Except for the bulbous bodies. It's a dead giveaway. But this totally reminds me like old-timey cartooning. And then, remember, this guy was 50 in something in 1972. So he grew up reading those old-time comics. He was a little kid when Mutt and Jeff were starting their, well, not that old, but, these kind of goofy old-timey comic strips. So the other Oscar, he pulls out a mirror and holds it over his stomach. And now we see what Oscar sees, it says. And we see an infinity image that just keeps going on and on. Oscar rubs his eyes. When he opens them up, the guy's gone. And he comments about how, it's probably for the best. That guy was obnoxious. Kind of made me nervous. I like these panels of him, he's like, I got to think my way out of this problem. I got to figure out what the hell's going on. We start to see this little op art here. And then this, we see all of these cranks and, Veeble Fitzers. And I don't know why I love this panel. It reminds me of some other cartoonist. Maybe Harvey Kurtzman? I don't know. There's all this cross-hatching. So I guess the reason why there's cross-hatching, the lights went out. We see this kind of janitor type guy say, one of the fuses blew again. Oscar turns around. There's now 3 doors. He says, wait, which door did I come through? I can't remember. So the first door he goes through, there's a weird room with a chandelier in the middle of the floor. And this kind of a weird shot we see. It's from above. And Oscar's afraid he'll be stuck in there forever. And it's almost like an M.C. Escher room. The walls turn into the ceiling turns into the floor. We get this kind of weird, cool imagery here. I guess now he's looking up at the ceiling? I can't even tell. It's all askew. Today, treat your family. All meat. I don't know why. This hole opens up in the floor. He goes flying through it. I like these panels a lot. I know there's better artists out there, but I think this page looks great. With all these speed lines. I like the sound effect, swish. And Oscar's like going down this duct. And finally, it goes schlep. And he pops out, and all these people are like, happy birthday, Oscar, happy birthday to you. Almost as like he was born again. That was like a uterus, you know. And he tells them, he says, but it's not my birthday. And they get really angry with them. They're like, what do you mean it's not your birthday? You little creep. Fuck you. Give me back my watermelon. And he's like, what did I do? I'm sorry. So they all leave in a huff. And he tries to follow them out the door they left. But when he gets up to the door, it says not an exit. And I guess he obeys the rules. So he says, oh, now I'm stuck in here forever. There's no TV. And then he says, I don't have any friends anyway. And as he's saying this kind of self-pitying stuff, the camera's pulling back. He says, nobody cares about me. And then we realize he's in the knot of a tree. And Oscar just ends the comic with, I wish I were dead. So I don't know what the hell happened in that comic. But this Bruce Walthers guy was an interesting cat. I wish I'd like to meet the guy. He probably was a really fun old guy to hang out with. And I'm saying old. I'm older than him when he did this. I'm 57. But it's just very strange that he was like a real old guy. I still live like a 21-year-old, you know, on the cusp of poverty. And I don't do much with my life. Never had kids or anything. Kind of like this back cover where a guy says, I'm bored. He puts on the holographic articulator. And he says, fantasy is much better than reality. Gets in a flying ship. And I just love that little image of the little flying ship going through this circular rainbow. And once again, this isn't drawn very well at all. But just the composition I really like. So there you go, guys. OK Comics number 1 and 2 by Bruce Walthers. Hope you guys liked it. I know this is a very particular taste. I never, like I said, I used to not like his comics. After reading these two, this is the first time I just bought these. I like this stuff. I want to read more. It's just so daffy. And you have no idea where the stories are going. Every page turn, you're like, what is he going to do now? And yeah, I just appreciate it on that level. And like I said, it really does seem like he was very joyously making these comics. He was making them for himself. It was something he couldn't not do, a compulsion, if you will. And it comes across like, oh, this guy's not trying to appeal to anyone. He's just a quirky, weird, old, eccentric guy. And these are his comics. So, there you go. Like I said, hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.